There is something happening inside your skull right now that scientists are only beginning to understand. A quiet, invisible process, running without your permission, shaping every thought you will have tomorrow. Tonight, we are going to follow that process into the deepest corners of neuroscience and discover what your brain is doing at this very moment, in the dark, while the world goes still. Welcome to Sleep Science Documentary, wherever you are right now, perhaps lying in the soft weight of your covers, perhaps feeling the quiet pull of exhaustion you have been carrying all day. Allow yourself to settle here. We will trace 100 psychology facts about what happens to your brain when sleep is taken away, from the first restless hour when neurons begin to misfire, to the deep biological repair your mind is quietly beginning right now, to the extraordinary resilience written into every sleeping brain on Earth. This quiet exploration of the sleeping mind creates a space where exhausted thoughts can finally rest. A gentle like, a subscribe, or a soft share helps other tired minds find their way here and brings us closer to protecting this sanctuary. One sleepy soul at a time. We are glad you are here tonight. Settle deeper into wherever you are now. Let your shoulders drop. Let your jaw unclench. Just slightly. You do not need to hold on to any of this science. You do not need to remember a single fact. Simply let these words wash over you, like a soft current moving through dark water, gentle and unhurried, carrying you down toward the rest your brain has been asking for all day. Close your eyes and breathe deeply. You are resting where memories soften and thoughts begin to lose their edges. Let your mind dissolve with the quiet between one thought and the next. And now we begin. Sleep is not the absence of waking. It is one of the most metabolically active states your brain ever enters. For decades, scientists assumed sleep was simply the brain powering down, a passive rest between the real work of waking life. We now know that picture was almost entirely wrong. During sleep, your brain cycles through complex stages of activity, each one performing functions that cannot be accomplished any other way. The sleeping brain consolidates memories, clears cellular waste, regulates hormones, and rehearses emotional responses. What looks like stillness from the outside is, at the cellular level, a symphony. Sleep is not the pause between living. It is one of the most essential acts of living itself. The human brain requires sleep the way it requires oxygen. This is not a metaphor. Research from the National Institutes of Health has confirmed that going without sleep triggers measurable physical changes in brain tissue within days. Neurons begin to malfunction. Cellular waste accumulates in spaces it should never reach. The blood-brain barrier, a protective membrane that keeps unwanted substances out of your brain, begins to show signs of reduced filtering efficiency with even moderate sleep restriction. Your brain was not designed to function without sleep any more than your lungs were designed to function without air. The need is that fundamental and that biological. The average adult needs between 7 and 9 hours of sleep each night. This is not a cultural preference or a personal quirk. It is a biological specification, embedded in human genetics over hundreds of thousands of years of evolution. Research published in recent years has found that approximately 1/3 of adults in the United States regularly sleep fewer than 7 hours. That number, when you sit with it, is worth noticing. 1 in 3 brains waking up each morning without having completed the work the night was meant to provide. A quiet, widespread form of neural debt, accumulating in ways most people never notice until the effects are already present. After an extended period of continuous waking, beyond what the body considers a normal day, measurable cognitive decline begins to appear. Reaction time slows. Short-term memory becomes less reliable. Decision-making circuits show reduced activity on brain imaging scans. The decline is gradual at first, subtle enough that most people do not notice it. This is one of the more curious aspects of sleep deprivation research. Studies have found that people who are significantly affected by sleep loss often rate their own performance as perfectly fine. The very cognitive systems we use to evaluate our own functioning are among the first to be quietly altered. The brain becomes less capable of knowing how much less capable it has become. The prefrontal cortex is one of the first regions to show the effects of sleep deprivation. This area, located just behind your forehead, is responsible for planning, judgment, impulse control, and complex reasoning. It is, in many ways, the most distinctly human part of the brain, the region most associated with the qualities we consider thoughtful, measured, and considered. Sleep restriction reduces blood flow to the prefrontal cortex. Neurons there fire less efficiently. Studies have found that the cognitive effects produced by staying awake for approximately 24 hours are comparable to a blood alcohol level above the legal driving limit in most states. The sleepy brain is not simply tired. It is measurably impaired in ways that parallel the impairment most people would never voluntarily choose. Research using brain imaging has found that the amygdala, roughly the size of an almond, tucked deep inside the temporal lobe, shows significantly heightened reactivity after a night of poor sleep. The response to emotionally negative images becomes more pronounced, and the regulatory connection to the prefrontal cortex, which ordinarily helps quiet that alarm, becomes measurably weaker. What felt manageable during the day may feel slightly heavier after a night of poor rest. The emotional world becomes more tender, not because circumstances changed, but because the brain's regulatory capacity quietly did. What was designed as an alarm system becomes, without adequate sleep, a more sensitive one, less easily settled, more easily stirred. Sleep occurs in cycles, each lasting approximately 90 minutes. Within each cycle, the brain moves through distinct stages: light sleep, during which the body begins to relax and the brain produces bursts of activity called sleep spindles; deep, slow-wave sleep, during which the body does most of its physical repair and the brain consolidates certain types of memory; and REM sleep, rapid eye movement sleep, during which the brain becomes almost as active as it is when fully awake, and the most vivid dreaming occurs. A full night of sleep gives you 4 to 6 of these complete cycles. Cutting sleep short does not simply reduce all stages equally. It disproportionately reduces the cycles at the end of the night, which contain the most REM sleep, the stage most tied to emotional regulation and creative thinking. REM sleep is when your brain processes emotional memories. During this stage, the brain replays emotionally significant experiences from the day, but does so in a neurochemical environment that is notably different from waking. The stress chemical norepinephrine is almost entirely absent during REM. Researchers have described this as a kind of overnight processing, the brain revisiting difficult experiences while the chemical signature of distress is turned down. Memories are processed, contextualized, and filed away with their sharp edges softened. Without enough REM sleep, this processing is incomplete. The emotional weight of experiences remains less resolved. People who are chronically REM deprived often describe feeling emotionally tender. And now we understand, at least in part, why. Your brain has a waste removal system that operates most effectively during sleep. This system, called the glymphatic system, was first described in scientific literature in 2013. One of the most significant neuroscience findings of the past 2 decades. During sleep, particularly deep, slow-wave sleep, the spaces between brain cells expand by up to 60%. Cerebrospinal fluid moves through these widened spaces, clearing out metabolic waste products that accumulated during the day. Among the substances cleared is beta-amyloid, a protein that, when it builds up over years, is associated with the plaques found in Alzheimer's disease. Your brain clears itself at night without adequate sleep. That clearing is reduced. This is measurable, visible on imaging scans, and considered by researchers to be one of the most meaningful connections between sleep and long-term brain health. So here is what the science is already beginning to reveal. Just 10 facts in. Sleep deprivation does not simply make you tired. It makes the brain's emotional regulation quieter, its cognition less precise, and its clearing systems less complete. This is the first layer of the answer your brain has been building toward. Sleep is not a passive state. It is an active biological necessity. And what happens when it is taken away is not simply fatigue. It is a cascade of precisely measurable changes, unfolding quietly inside the skull, one sleepless hour at a time. Memory consolidation is one of sleep's most studied functions. When you learn something new during the day, a name, a fact, a physical skill, that information exists initially in a fragile, unstable form in the hippocampus, a curved structure deep inside the brain. During sleep, and especially during slow-wave sleep, the hippocampus replays these newly acquired memories and begins transferring them to the cerebral cortex for longer-term storage. This process is called memory consolidation, and it cannot be replicated through rest or relaxation while awake. Sleep is the mechanism. Without it, the information remains fragile, more easily disrupted, and more likely to fade. Motor memories, the kind involved in learning a physical skill, are consolidated primarily during REM sleep. Studies in which participants learned a finger-tapping sequence found that performance improved significantly after a night of sleep, but not after an equivalent period of wakefulness. The brain was refining the skill during the night, without the body moving. Without conscious effort, this sleep-dependent motor learning occurs across the lifespan, but is particularly active in children and adolescents, which may partly explain why developing brains require so much more sleep than adult brains. The brain that sleeps fully is, in many ways, the brain that learns most readily. Brain imaging studies have found that after extended wakefulness, the hippocampus shows a dramatic reduction in activity when attempting to encode new memories, in some cases approaching nearly half its normal capacity. And yet the sleep-deprived participants in these studies often rated their own alertness as adequate. The brain was far more affected than it knew itself to be. This gap between perceived and actual performance is one of the more consistent findings in sleep deprivation research, and one of the more quietly consequential ones. The relationship between sleep and learning works in both directions. Not only does sleep consolidate what was learned before sleep, it also prepares the brain for new learning afterward. Researchers describe sleep as clearing and resetting certain memory systems, creating capacity for the information that the next day will bring, if that reset does not occur. Because sleep did not happen, the capacity for new learning is reduced. Chronic sleep restriction. In this light, is not simply a daily impairment. It is a gradual narrowing of the brain's openness to the world. Each morning that follows true. Complete sleep is a morning with a little more room in it. Chronic partial sleep deprivation is often more quietly pervasive than total sleep deprivation. Because it goes unnoticed. A person who has slept only 5 or 6 hours a night for 2 weeks will typically show cognitive performance comparable to someone who has been awake for close to 48 hours. But unlike that person, the chronically sleep-restricted individual feels only mildly tired. The brain adapts to the deficiency by lowering its own sense of sleepiness, while the underlying impairment persists. People operating at a fraction of their cognitive capacity believe they are functioning normally. The gap becomes invisible, which makes it all the more enduring. The hormone cortisol, often called the stress hormone, follows a carefully timed rhythm during healthy sleep. In a well-rested cycle, cortisol levels reach their lowest point in the early hours of the night, then begin a gradual rise in the hours before waking. A biological signal that helps the body prepare for the coming day. Sleep disruption alters this rhythm in measurable ways. People with chronically disrupted sleep show cortisol levels that remain elevated at times when they should be low, maintaining the body in a state of quiet physiological readiness when the system was designed to be at rest. Over time, this sustained elevation is associated with changes in how the brain's memory structures respond to ongoing stress, and with shifts in immune function and metabolic regulation. Growth hormone is released primarily during the first few hours of sleep. During deep, slow-wave stages, this hormone is not simply relevant to growing children. It plays a meaningful role in cellular repair, immune function, and metabolic regulation in adults throughout the lifespan. Missing the early deep sleep stages, either through insufficient sleep or through alcohol consumption before bed, which suppresses slow-wave sleep, significantly reduces growth hormone release. Sleep is not simply a block of time during which rest occurs. It is a carefully timed sequence of biological events, and each stage carries its own specific contribution to the body and brain. The body's internal clock, called the circadian rhythm, is governed by a small cluster of neurons in the brain called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, located in the hypothalamus. This structure keeps time through a self-sustaining molecular cycle of gene expression. Light is the primary signal this clock uses to stay aligned with the outside world. Exposure to light, particularly blue wavelength light, in the evening shifts the clock, moving the natural sleep window later. This is why screens before bed can make sleep harder to come by. The brain is not simply distracted by them. Its internal clock is being quietly adjusted, nudged away from the timing that would otherwise allow sleep to arrive naturally. Sleep deprivation and low mood share a complex and bidirectional relationship. Poor sleep is one of the most consistent predictors of difficult emotional periods, and disrupted mood, in turn, often severely disrupts sleep architecture, reducing slow-wave sleep and fragmenting REM. This creates a cycle that can be deeply difficult to untangle without addressing both simultaneously. Research into this relationship has opened new questions about how the sleeping brain and the feeling brain regulate each other, and how restoring one can sometimes, quietly, begin to restore the other. Adenosine is a chemical that accumulates in the brain the longer you stay awake. It is one of the primary drivers of sleep pressure, the increasing pull towards sleep that builds throughout the day. Caffeine works by occupying adenosine receptors, preventing the chemical from binding and signaling fatigue. But caffeine does not prevent adenosine from being produced. It simply delays the signal. When caffeine is metabolized, the adenosine that was waiting rushes in, explaining the tiredness that often follows. During sleep, adenosine is cleared from the brain. This clearing is one of sleep's most fundamental functions, resetting the chemical baseline of alertness for the next day. Every morning, ideally, begins a little lighter. Sleep makes that possible. The blood-brain barrier is a highly selective membrane that separates the bloodstream from the brain, carefully controlling which substances can enter neural tissue. Recent research has found that sleep deprivation affects the precision of this filtering. In animal studies, periods of sleep deprivation allowed molecules that would normally be blocked to reach brain tissue in measurably higher concentrations. This has implications for understanding how the brain's physical protective systems depend on rest. The membrane that keeps the brain's environment stable requires sleep, among other conditions, to maintain its careful function. What was designed as a protective filter works most precisely when sleep is allowed to do its part. Decision-making quality changes in ways that are both measurable and often invisible to the decision-maker. Sleep-deprived individuals tend to favor high-risk, high-reward options over more measured, considered choices. They are less capable of accurately anticipating the consequences of their decisions and less likely to adjust their strategies when outcomes are not going well. Research in behavioral neuroscience has found that this reflects genuine changes in how the prefrontal cortex and the brain's reward circuits communicate under conditions of sleep loss. The tired brain is not just slower. In certain ways, it reaches for larger rewards and accepts larger risks, while being less equipped to evaluate whether they are worth it. Creativity, the capacity to form novel connections between ideas, is one of the cognitive abilities most closely linked to REM sleep. During REM, the brain activates in patterns that differ from both waking consciousness and other sleep stages. Distant associations between memories become more accessible. The boundaries between categories of thought become more porous. Researchers have found that people woken during or shortly after REM sleep perform better on tasks requiring creative insight than those woken from other sleep stages. The capacity that allows for new connections, for seeing something in a different way, is nurtured in the dreaming brain. Sleep, in this sense, is not an absence of thought. It is thought in one of its most generative forms. Children and adolescents experience the effects of sleep deprivation in ways that are, in some respects, particularly far-reaching. The developing brain is in a period of intense neural pruning and myelination, the processes by which neural connections are either strengthened or refined, and the brain's wiring becomes faster and more efficient. Both processes depend heavily on sleep. Adolescents who are chronically sleep-restricted show measurable differences in the development of the prefrontal cortex, the brain region most actively developing during the teenage years, and most involved in emotional regulation and considered decision-making. This is one of the reasons sleep researchers have advocated strongly for later school start times, with growing support and adoption in recent years. At this point in our journey, a picture is forming. Sleep deprivation does not affect one system in isolation. It reaches into almost every domain of brain function simultaneously. Memory, emotion, decision-making, creativity, stress regulation, physical maintenance. Each of these effects touches the others. A brain that struggles to regulate emotion makes less considered decisions. A brain carrying more accumulated stress sleeps less deeply and clears less waste, and begins each new day with a slightly heavier load than the day before. The cascade is real. and it is quiet, and it is worth understanding. You are resting now, and in doing so, you are already beginning to soften it. Let's pause here and notice your body as you breathe out slowly. Appreciate each tiny cell inside, trillions of processes working in silence. Right now, your heart beating, your lungs breathing, your brain, even as you rest, quietly filing and repairing and restoring. Every process that keeps you alive is running right now, quietly. Without any request from you, you are being cared for from within. At this very moment, you are a complete ecosystem, self-balancing, self-healing. Notice the gentle sensations on your skin, in your muscles, along your spine. You do not need to do anything. Your body already knows how. Now we continue. Sleep deprivation affects the brain's pain processing systems. Studies have consistently found that insufficient sleep lowers pain thresholds, meaning the brain becomes more sensitive to physical discomfort after poor sleep. The mechanisms involve both the descending pain modulation pathways, which ordinarily help quiet pain signals traveling up from the body, and the emotional processing centers, which influence the distress associated with pain. For people living with chronic pain conditions, this creates a particularly difficult cycle. Pain disrupts sleep. Poor sleep makes pain feel more present. Understanding this connection has become an active area of pain medicine and sleep research, with both fields increasingly recognizing that addressing one often helps the other. The immune system is deeply connected to sleep. During deep sleep, the immune system releases proteins called cytokines, some of which promote sleep itself, while others help the body respond to infection and maintain internal balance. Insufficient sleep reduces the production of these protective proteins. Studies have found that people who sleep fewer than 6 hours a night are notably more likely to develop a respiratory illness after exposure to a cold virus than those who sleep 7 or more hours. The sleeping body is not simply resting, it is tending to itself. The immune system's most active restoration work occurs during the night, and that work is quietly reduced during sleepless ones. The relationship between sleep and metabolism is closer than most people realize. Sleep deprivation alters two hormones that regulate hunger: leptin, which signals fullness, and ghrelin, which signals hunger. After insufficient sleep, leptin levels tend to fall and ghrelin levels tend to rise, creating a biochemical state that increases appetite, particularly for calorie-dense foods. Studies have found that sleep-restricted individuals tend to consume meaningfully more calories per day compared to well-rested individuals performing the same activities, often several hundred additional calories, and disproportionately from foods high in sugar and refined carbohydrate. This is not simply a matter of preference. It is a hormonal pattern generated by the sleeping brain's absence, reaching into the body and reshaping appetite. Glucose metabolism in the brain is altered by sleep deprivation. The brain is one of the most energy-hungry organs in the body, consuming roughly 20% of the body's total energy, despite representing only about 2% of its weight. Under conditions of sleep deprivation, the brain's ability to regulate its own energy supply becomes less efficient. Glucose uptake in certain brain regions decreases. The prefrontal cortex shows among the most significant reductions in metabolic activity. The brain is, in a sense, running with reduced fuel, and the systems that require the most energy, the highest order thinking, the emotional regulation, the complex decision-making, are the first to feel it. Microsleeps are a phenomenon that occurs when the brain is severely sleep-deprived. A microsleep is an involuntary episode of sleep lasting anywhere from a fraction of a second to 30 seconds. The person experiencing a microsleep is typically unaware that it happened. During a microsleep, the brain essentially pauses briefly. Activity in the cortex drops, and incoming sensory information is no longer processed. For someone in a situation requiring sustained attention, a microsleep can arrive without warning and without any awareness that it occurred. A reminder of how fundamentally the brain prioritizes rest, even when the waking mind does not. The brain, pushed past its limits, does not ask permission to rest. It simply takes what it needs. The social brain is altered by sleep deprivation in ways that are only recently coming into focus. Researchers have found that sleep-deprived individuals show reduced activity in neural networks associated with social understanding, the ability to read other people's states, intentions, and expressions. They become more likely to interpret ambiguous social cues as unwelcoming, and less able to detect and respond to the emotional cues that normally smooth the flow of connection between people. Sleep loss does not simply affect the individual brain in isolation. It quietly changes how that brain meets the people around it, and how it is met in return. Research using brain imaging has found that after a single night without adequate sleep, certain regions of the brain show measurably higher concentrations of beta amyloid, the protein that, when it accumulates over years, forms the plaques associated with Alzheimer's disease. A single night does not determine a lifetime of risk, but the direction of the finding is one researchers take seriously. It suggests that chronic sleep deficiency may be among the modifiable factors that influence long-term brain health, and that protecting sleep across the lifespan may be one of the more meaningful ways of caring for the brain over time. The default mode network is a set of brain regions that become active when the mind is at rest. Not focused on an external task, it is associated with daydreaming, self-reflection, and the gradual weaving of experiences into a coherent sense of self. During sleep, and particularly during certain sleep stages, this network undergoes a form of processing, moving through unresolved impressions of the day and integrating them into the ongoing story of a life. Sleep deprivation disrupts this integration. The internal world of self-narrative becomes less settled. People who are chronically sleep-deprived often describe a vague sense of distance from themselves, a difficulty locating who they are beneath the fog of fatigue. Science is beginning to understand that this is not simply a feeling. It reflects measurable changes in how the brain organizes the sense of being a continuous self moving through time. Teenagers' circadian clocks undergo a genuine biological shift during puberty, naturally moving their sleep and wake times later by 1 to 2 hours. This is not a behavioral choice. It is driven by changes in the sensitivity of the brain's timekeeping structures to light, and by shifts in the timing of melatonin release. A teenager whose internal sleep window runs from 11 at night to 9 in the morning is not resisting an early schedule by preference. Their brain is genuinely not prepared for sleep earlier, and not fully alert at 6 in the morning. School systems that have shifted to later start times in response to this research have documented improvements in academic performance, well-being, and other measurable outcomes. Biology, when it is listened to, has a great deal to offer. Sleep is actively regulated by the brain, not simply the result of exhaustion. Two primary systems control sleep timing and depth. The first is the circadian system, the internal clock that generates a rhythm of alertness and sleepiness, aligned to the roughly 24-hour cycle of light and dark. The second is the homeostatic system, the sleep pressure that builds with every hour of wakefulness. Driven largely by adenosine accumulation, these two systems work in continuous balance, with the circadian system maintaining alertness through the day to counteract rising sleep pressure, until an evening tipping point when the circadian alerting signal fades and sleep pressure guides the brain toward rest. Understanding these two systems has been one of the foundational achievements of modern sleep science. The thalamus, a structure deep in the center of the brain, plays a gating role during sleep, gradually reducing sensory input from reaching the cortex. This is part of what allows sleep to be sustained, even in environments with some background sound or light. During light sleep, this gating is incomplete. During deep sleep, the thalamus becomes more effective at filtering outside signals, creating the quiet disconnection from the environment that characterizes the most restorative sleep stages. When sleep is fragmented by an uncomfortable environment, by stress, by discomfort, the brain hovers in lighter stages, cycling through thresholds of near waking without ever reaching the deeper, more restoring water below. The link between sleep and post-traumatic stress has become a meaningful area of research. People experiencing the lasting effects of difficult events often show significant disruption of REM sleep, including nightmares that return to traumatic experiences and frequent awakenings from REM stages. Researchers believe that the disruption of normal REM processing may be part of why certain memories remain so present and unresolved. The emotional processing that REM sleep ordinarily provides, softening, contextualizing, filing, is interrupted by the very content it is working to process. Treatments that address REM sleep disruption are showing promise alongside other approaches. The science of sleep and the science of healing are turning out to be more deeply connected than previously understood. Light exposure in the morning is one of the most effective regulators of sleep quality at night. Morning light, particularly in the first hour after waking, suppresses residual melatonin and helps set the circadian clock for the day, establishing the timing of the evening melatonin rise that will signal the brain to begin preparing for sleep. People who receive more natural morning light tend to fall asleep earlier and sleep more deeply. This relationship holds even in winter. When light intensity is lower, going outside in the morning, even on overcast days, is one of the most well-supported practical steps available for improving sleep. Light is the primary language the brain uses to know what time it is. Napping can partially offset the cognitive effects of sleep deprivation, but it cannot fully replace lost nighttime sleep. A nap of 20 to 30 minutes can improve alertness, working memory, and reaction time for several hours. Longer naps that include slow-wave sleep can produce more meaningful cognitive restoration, though they may also result in a period of grogginess upon waking. Research has found that napping does not substantially restore the emotional processing benefits of nighttime REM sleep, or replicate the glymphatic clearance that occurs during deep nocturnal sleep cycles. Napping is a useful and gentle tool, but it is, at best, a partial bridge. The brain's deepest restoration is reserved for the long, uninterrupted night. At this point in our journey, a new layer of understanding is emerging. Sleep deprivation does not simply impair, it accumulates. The effects of lost sleep do not fully reverse with one better night. Research has found that cognitive performance, after a period of chronic restriction, takes multiple nights of recovery sleep before it returns to its full ease, and in some domains, particularly emotional steadiness and certain memory functions, the recovery is gradual. Sleep debt is real. and while it can be repaid with patience and consistency, the repayment takes time. The brain is resilient, but it needs the right conditions. Those conditions begin tonight. In the stillness you are already allowing to settle around you. Just notice. Don't judge. Just notice where your mind is right now. We're exploring consciousness itself. The very thing doing the exploring. Take a slow breath. We're wandering through the science of the sleeping mind together. You and I, and everyone listening in the quiet dark, strange, beautiful, and perfectly calm. Let's drift onward together. The sleeping brain does not simply replay memories. It transforms them during sleep, particularly during slow-wave sleep, followed by REM. The brain extracts underlying patterns from individual experiences, drawing out the regularities and the abstract structure beneath specific events. This is called schema abstraction, and it is considered one of sleep's more sophisticated cognitive contributions. It may be why a problem that seemed difficult at night sometimes presents differently by morning. The brain, working quietly through the hours of sleep, was not simply resting with the problem. It was finding a different relationship to it. What felt like a wall became, overnight, something more like a door. The pineal gland, a small structure deep in the brain, produces melatonin, the hormone most directly associated with signaling the onset of sleep. Melatonin does not cause sleep directly. Rather, it is a timing signal, a chemical message broadcast to tissues throughout the body, announcing that darkness has arrived and that biological nighttime processes may begin. Melatonin production is suppressed by light and gradually rises in darkness. It begins to increase roughly 2 hours before natural sleep onset, peaks in the middle of the night, and fades as morning approaches. Supplemental melatonin, taken in small doses, can help shift the timing of the circadian clock, making it useful for jet lag and circadian rhythm disruptions, but does not significantly deepen or extend sleep in people without a circadian timing concern. Sleepwalking and sleep talking, classified as parasomnias, occur during slow-wave sleep, not during REM. During REM sleep, the brain sends signals that temporarily reduce activity in most voluntary muscles, limiting the body from acting out the vivid experiences of dreaming. This is called REM atonia, and it is an elegant protective mechanism. In people where this reduction does not occur fully, the sleeping person may physically respond to dream content. REM sleep behavior changes are more common in older adults, and researchers have found associations between certain patterns and neurological health over time. The relationship between how the brain behaves during sleep and how it functions during waking continues to be an area of active investigation. Difficulty falling or staying asleep, when it persists and affects daily life, is one of the most common concerns brought to medical attention worldwide. Estimates suggest that between 10 and 30% of adults experience this kind of chronic disruption at any given time. Cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia, often called CBTI, is now considered the first-line approach by sleep medicine specialists, more effective over time than sleep medications. With no dependency concerns and lasting benefits, it works by gently addressing the thoughts and behaviors that maintain the cycle of difficult sleep, rather than simply sedating the brain. Research continues to expand the reach of this approach, including through digital formats that have made it accessible to many more people in recent years. Dreams are not random noise. The brain during REM dreaming is doing something, even if researchers continue to explore what exactly that something is. Current hypotheses include emotional memory processing, threat simulation, the idea that dreams may help rehearse responses to challenging situations, and memory integration. The content of dreams tends to draw from recent experiences mixed with older memories, often combining them in ways that feel unusual, but that, on reflection, often carry an emotional logic. The dreaming brain speaks in the only language available in that state: image, sensation, and feeling, unfiltered by the waking self. Sleep spindles, brief bursts of oscillatory brain activity that appear during light sleep stages, have been linked to the transfer of memories from the hippocampus to the cortex. The more sleep spindles a person generates during a night, the better their memory performance tends to be the following day. Sleep spindle density varies across individuals and tends to shift with age. Researchers are investigating whether certain forms of gentle stimulation during sleep might support spindle activity in populations where memory consolidation has become less efficient. The rhythms of the sleeping brain are not simply background patterns. They are the instruments of some of its most essential overnight work. Sleep architecture, the pattern and proportion of sleep stages across the night, changes meaningfully with age. Infants spend nearly half their sleep time in REM. Children have proportionally more slow-wave sleep than adults. By middle age, slow-wave sleep has decreased substantially and continues to shift through older adulthood. These changes have implications for the kinds of maintenance that occur during sleep. Understanding and gently supporting sleep architecture across the lifespan is one of the growing priorities of both sleep medicine and aging research. Recognizing that how we sleep at each stage of life shapes, in quiet and persistent ways, how we think, feel, and age. There is a particular stretch of the night, roughly between 2 and 4 in the morning, when the human body is in its most deeply resting configuration. Core body temperature is at its lowest. Hormone levels are in a particular phase of their cycle. The immune system is engaged in certain stages of its activity. If someone is awake at this hour, cognitive performance is at its most reduced, and the brain's regulatory systems are in their quietest state. This period also corresponds to a time when dreams are most vivid and emotionally resonant, and when the brain's capacity to manage whatever it encounters is at its gentlest. It is the deepest valley of the night. And there is something peaceful in knowing that the body designed this valley on purpose. The sense of time passing is altered during different sleep stages. During slow-wave sleep, subjective time essentially disappears. People woken from deep sleep often have no sense of how long they were asleep. During REM sleep, time appears to move at roughly normal waking speed. Dream experiences unfold in something close to real time, though the brain occasionally compresses or extends sequences. The dreamless depths of slow-wave sleep are, in this sense, the closest the conscious brain comes to a true pause, a peaceful interruption in the continuous thread of experience that weaves through waking life. Not an absence, more like a rest between movements. Halfway through this journey, the answer to the question at the heart of our video has begun to take shape. What happens to your brain when you don't sleep? Not one thing, everything. The cascade reaches from the molecular level, where proteins accumulate in the spaces that should be clear, to the relational level, where the faces of other people become harder to read, and the quiet currents of connection between human beings grow less available. But the cascade is reversible, not instantly, not perfectly, but genuinely, the brain that is given sleep, tonight and the night after, begins to restore itself with a reliability that is, given everything it does, quietly extraordinary. You are giving yours that chance right now. Every memory you believe is most real is actually reconstructed each time you return to it. Right now, as you rest, your brain is quietly revising today, deciding what to hold, what to soften, what to let dissolve. You are in the middle of a rewriting, and you don't need to direct it. The most important editing happens without you. Sense this. The present moment is all that asks anything of you, and all it asks is that you rest. We continue the journey. The brain during sleep is not simply quieter. Certain regions become more active during sleep than during waking. The hippocampus, the limbic system, and parts of the visual cortex show heightened activity during certain sleep stages. The default mode network becomes particularly active. Sleep is a reorganization of neural activity, a shift into modes of operation that are simply not available to the waking brain. The architecture of sleep is not a lesser version of waking consciousness. It is a different one, with its own purposes and its own kind of intelligence. Lucid dreaming, the experience of becoming aware that one is dreaming while remaining in the dream, has been studied in laboratory settings with carefully designed protocols. People in lucid dreaming states show a distinctive pattern of brain activity. The heightened emotionality and visual creativity of REM, combined with increased activity in the prefrontal cortex, the region most associated with self-awareness. This makes lucid dreaming a kind of hybrid state, neither fully dreaming nor fully waking. Researchers have used lucid dreamers to investigate what the dreaming brain can and cannot do. And the findings have continued to reveal how much the sleeping mind retains of the waking one. Even in the depths of the night, the sleeping brain processes language. Studies have found that simple sounds presented to people in light sleep stages can influence behavior upon waking, even without conscious recall. In some research designs, words associated with a specific task were played during sleep, and participants showed improvements on that task the following morning. The sleeping brain is not entirely sealed off from the world around it. It is listening, at some level, even in the dark, and what it attends to seems to be shaped, as in waking life, by what has been given meaning. Sleep deprivation increases the tendency to form inaccurate memories. When the brain is fatigued, its ability to accurately distinguish between something that actually happened and something merely imagined, read about, or suggested is reduced. Studies have found that sleep-deprived individuals are more susceptible to misleading suggestions and more likely to confidently recall events that did not occur. Memory, the research reminds us, is not a recording. It is a reconstruction, and a tired brain reconstructs with less precision. A finding with implications that extend well beyond the laboratory. The relationship between sleep and inflammation runs in both directions. Poor sleep is associated with elevated levels of inflammatory markers in the blood, and conditions that involve inflammation often significantly disrupt sleep in return. The sleeping brain is not simply a passive recipient of the body's condition. It is an active participant in the regulation of the body's inflammatory state. When the brain sleeps well, the body tends toward a quieter, more balanced internal environment. When sleep is disrupted, that balance becomes harder to maintain, and the effects, over time, can be felt across multiple systems of the body. The sounds of different sleep stages have been described through the recording of the brain's electrical activity. During waking, the brain produces fast, Small, irregular waves. During light sleep, larger and slower waves emerge, interspersed with the rapid spindle activity. During deep, slow-wave sleep, the brain produces large, synchronized delta waves, slow rolling oscillations that sweep across the cortex like tides. During REM, the pattern returns to something resembling waking. Fast, irregular, active. Each pattern reflects a different mode of neural communication. The sleeping brain is not silent. It is speaking in a language of waves, cycling through frequencies that serve different purposes throughout the night. Individual variation in sleep need is genuine and partially shaped by genetics. While the average adult needs 7 to 9 hours, some people appear to find their rhythms slightly outside that range. Researchers have identified specific genetic variants associated with differences in sleep duration and architecture. It is worth noting, though, that people who genuinely function fully on substantially less sleep appear to be far rarer than the number of people who believe they do. The brain adapts to chronic restriction by becoming accustomed to it, not by genuinely needing less. The feeling of having adjusted is not the same as the brain having been restored. Temperature regulation is closely tied to sleep. The body's core temperature drops by approximately 1 to 2 degrees Fahrenheit during sleep, and this drop is both a consequence of sleep and a condition that supports it. The hands and feet warm as the body releases heat through the skin. One reason that warming the feet before bed can make falling asleep feel more natural. The sleep environment's temperature matters. A room that is too warm can interfere with the body's natural thermal descent, reducing deep sleep and increasing nighttime awakenings. For most adults, a room temperature of approximately 65 to 68 degrees Fahrenheit supports sleep most reliably. The body, preparing for rest, needs to cool. A room that allows that is a room that welcomes sleep. Dreams involving other people tend to feature those who are emotionally significant to the dreamer. Close relationships, ongoing tensions, sources of recent feeling. The brain does not populate dreams randomly. It appears to select characters according to their emotional resonance, using the dream space to continue processing the relational dimensions of waking life. People moving through significant life transitions, grief, change, meaningful decisions, often notice increased dream vividness during these periods. The dreaming brain keeps returning to what matters, night after night, until it has been held long enough. Sleep and the sense of self are more intimately connected than is commonly recognized. In states of significant sleep deprivation, people sometimes describe subtle shifts in their experience, a feeling of watching themselves from a slight distance, a difficulty connecting to their own emotional responses, a sense that the ordinary texture of the world has become less immediate. These experiences are thought to reflect disruptions in the brain networks that normally maintain the continuous sense of being a coherent self, moving through time. Sleep, among its many functions, is part of what keeps that experience intact and continuous. The self that wakes from true sleep is, in some quiet way, more fully assembled. The relationship between sleep and cardiovascular health is among the most well-established in sleep medicine. People who consistently sleep fewer than 6 hours per night show elevated rates of hypertension and other cardiovascular conditions. The mechanisms are multiple. Sleep deprivation raises blood pressure. It increases sympathetic nervous system activity, keeping the body in a low-level state of readiness when it was meant to be at rest. It also affects the hormonal regulation of blood sugar in ways that, over time, can alter metabolic function. The heart, like the brain, is not simply resting during sleep. It is in a particular physiological state, lower demand, lower pressure, that allows for a kind of recovery that the demands of the day do not permit. Shift workers, people whose work schedules require them to be awake during hours that conflict with their natural circadian rhythm, represent one of the most studied populations in sleep research: chronic circadian misalignment. The term for the persistent mismatch between the internal clock and the external schedule has been recognized by major health organizations as a meaningful risk factor for a range of long-term health conditions. This does not mean that shift work inevitably leads to harm, but it does mean that the body's circadian system is not simply a preference. It is a biological architecture whose sustained disruption carries consequences that researchers continue to map with increasing clarity. The human sleep cycle evolved in the context of a world without artificial light. For most of human evolutionary history, the transition from day to night was marked by a gradual dimming of the environment over roughly 2 hours following sunset. This gradual change allowed the circadian system to make a smooth, well-timed transition to sleep. Artificial light, and in particular the blue wavelength light of screens, disrupts this transition by mimicking the spectral properties of daylight at hours when the brain expects darkness. The circadian system, shaped over hundreds of thousands of years, is encountering conditions it was never designed to encounter. The effects of widespread artificial light exposure, accumulating over decades, are part of what sleep researchers are still actively tracing. Recent research has found that social isolation and loneliness are associated with meaningful disruptions in sleep quality. People experiencing loneliness show increased time in light sleep stages, more nighttime awakenings, and reduced slow-wave sleep, even after accounting for mood and stress levels. The neurobiology underlying this seems to involve the brain's threat detection systems. A brain that perceives itself as socially isolated may remain in a more vigilant state, even during sleep, as if watching. Connection appears to have physiological dimensions that reach into the architecture of the sleeping brain. Feeling held by others, it seems, is part of what allows the brain to fully let go. The effects of sleep deprivation on the brain are not uniform across regions. The areas that are most metabolically active during waking, the prefrontal cortex, the association areas involved in complex thought, tend to show the most significant changes under sleep restriction. Meanwhile, more evolutionarily ancient regions, including the brainstem structures that regulate basic functions like breathing and heart rate, are relatively maintained. The brain, when resources are reduced, appears to prioritize survival functions. The deepest, oldest parts keep running. The newest, most complex parts, the ones most associated with what we consider fully human, are the first to soften. Sleep is what keeps us wholly ourselves. The experience of falling asleep, the transition from wakefulness to sleep, involves a series of quiet neurological changes. The thalamus begins to shift its relationship with the cortex. The default mode network settles into a different pattern. Muscular tension releases, heart rate and breathing slow. Many people notice a gentle jolt during this transition, a brief muscular movement that can bring wakefulness back for a moment. These are more common when overtired or carrying stress. The process of falling asleep is not instantaneous. It is a gradual loosening of the structures that hold consciousness in its alert configuration. until they finally release and something quieter takes their place. Sleep and creative insight have been observed to connect in ways that science has now begun to formalize. A study, published in Science Advances, confirmed that the threshold state at sleep onset, when the mind is moving between waking and light sleep, is associated with a meaningful increase in creative problem-solving. Brief, gentle interruptions of sleep at this stage can allow people to capture insights that would otherwise dissolve back into the night. The doorway of sleep, it turns out, is one of the more generative places the mind visits. A state where the constraints of waking thought have begun to loosen, and where the mind's capacity for new connections is, for a moment, unusually open. Sleep affects how pain is held in memory. Not only does poor sleep make discomfort feel more present in the moment, it also shapes how that experience is stored and anticipated. People who are sleep-deprived tend to recall past discomfort as more intense than it was, and to approach future physical challenges with more apprehension. Well-rested individuals show more measured pain recall and more settled anticipatory responses. Supporting sleep is not simply a comfort measure for people managing physical discomfort. It is an active way of changing the relationship between the brain and the body's experience of pain. Now, and in what comes after, across cultures and throughout recorded history, sleep has been treated as a meaningful time, associated with healing, with inner guidance, and with the softening of what daytime life makes hard. Ancient medical traditions included the practice of restorative sleep in healing contexts. Indigenous traditions across multiple continents have woven the care of sleep into their medical and spiritual practices for generations. Modern neuroscience does not explain everything these traditions were sensing, but it has confirmed, through different instruments and different languages, the same core observation. What happens during sleep is not nothing. It is some of the most important work a person ever does. The sleeping brain generates its own form of experience. During REM dreaming, the brain constructs environments, populates them with people, generates vivid sensory experience, and processes events as if they were happening. The neural circuits responsible for perception are active. The circuits responsible for emotion are active. What is largely quieted are the circuits responsible for critical evaluation and the ongoing monitoring of reality that keeps waking experience grounded. The dream world is the brain's world, built entirely from within, and experienced with a completeness that, during the dream itself, feels indistinguishable from the one outside. Sleep is, in this sense, the original inner world, and the brain has been building it for as long as it has been capable of dreaming at all. Breathing disruptions during sleep, particularly obstructive sleep apnea, in which the airway repeatedly narrows during sleep, causing brief arousals, are among the most common and most under-recognized sleep conditions. Estimates suggest that close to 1 billion adults worldwide have some degree of obstructive sleep apnea, ranging from mild to severe, with a significant portion unaware of the condition. Each episode fragments sleep architecture, reducing time in deep and REM stages. Effective approaches, most notably continuous positive airway pressure therapy, are widely available, and when used consistently, produce measurable improvements in cognitive function, mood, and cardiovascular health. Recognizing the condition is often the most meaningful first step. The olfactory system, the brain's smell processing circuits, has a particular relationship with sleep and memory. Unlike other sensory inputs, smell is processed along a more direct pathway that connects immediately to the hippocampus and amygdala, the structures most centrally involved in memory and emotion, studies have found that exposing people to a specific scent while learning, and then representing that scent during slow-wave sleep, can enhance consolidation of the associated memories. The brain, encountering the familiar scent during sleep, preferentially attends to those memories. Smell, the most ancient of senses, turns out to have a quiet connection to the sleeping mind's most important work. Naps in early afternoon, aligned with a natural dip in alertness that occurs for many people around 1 to 3 in the afternoon, have been found to be more restorative than naps taken at other times. Many cultures have historically incorporated a midday rest into their daily rhythms, without necessarily knowing the neuroscience behind it. Research has found that regular afternoon rest is associated with better cognitive performance through the day, and with certain markers of long-term health in longitudinal studies. The brain's architecture does not simply expect one consolidated period of rest per day. There is a secondary window of reduced alertness built into the rhythm. A quiet invitation, offered daily, to pause for a moment in the middle of everything. The sleeping brain is more sensitive to emotionally meaningful sounds than to neutral ones. Studies have found that a significant word, a name, something with personal relevance, is more likely to produce a neural response during sleep than an equally loud but meaningless sound. The brain, even asleep, has not entirely released its connection to what matters. The person who wakes to a familiar voice but sleeps through traffic outside the window is not simply habituated to one and not the other. Her brain is attending, even in sleep, to what it has been taught through experience and care is worth attending to. And now the understanding is full. We have traced sleep deprivation from its first gentle effect on emotional steadiness and response time, through the disruption of memory systems and metabolic regulation, through the slowing of clearance processes that keep the brain's environment clean, through the social, creative, and relational textures of a life lived without enough rest. And we have traced, in the background of all of this, the extraordinary thing that sleep actually is. Not an absence, but a presence, a daily act of profound biological maintenance, restoration, and meaning-making. The brain that sleeps is the brain that learns, that heals, that processes the weight of days. You are giving yours exactly what it needs. Right now, in this stillness, let that be enough. You might be feeling tired now. That is perfectly fine. The sleeping brain does not resist the night. It has done this before, countless times before you. Across generations no one can count. Your body knows the way, like a tide that does not need to be reminded to go out. Your mind is already moving toward the deep. Let your breath find its own rhythm. Inhale, exhale, let the cycle carry you. You don't need to hold anything. We are almost there now. Sleep is an act of trust. The sleeping body is vulnerable, less aware, less able to respond to what surrounds it. And yet evolution did not remove it. It deepened it, extended it, and wove it into the most fundamental architecture of life. Every creature with a nervous system sleeps, or sleeps in some form. Sleep was kept across millions of years, because the brain that slept returned the next day more capable than the one that did not. The night has its own intelligence, not the sharp intelligence of daylight thinking, but a slower, Veda, more associative kind. The brain during sleep is not solving equations. It is weaving, pulling threads from different parts of the day, different parts of a life, finding where they connect. Sometimes, what it weaves becomes a dream. Sometimes it becomes a clarity that waits quietly in the morning, like something left at the door overnight. Somewhere in the quiet of this night, the brain is doing something no waking hour allows. The spaces between its cells have widened slightly. A slow, invisible current is moving through them. Something that accumulated today is dissolving, gently, into the fluid that surrounds every thought you have ever had. You will not remember this process, but you will feel its absence if it doesn't happen, and you will feel its gift. Quietly. In the morning, the brain holds the gentler version of memories, not through distortion, but through selection. During sleep, emotional memories are softened. The sharp edges of difficult experiences are gradually worn smooth, not by forgetting, but by the way the dreaming brain processes them. In the absence of the neurochemicals that make distress feel like distress, morning does not simply bring a new day. It brings the same experiences, held a little differently. Sleep is where the brain makes sense of things that could not be made sense of during the day. The constraints of waking thought. Linear, sequential, anchored to the immediate, are relaxed. The associative, emotionally fluent mode of dreaming becomes available. The questions you fall asleep with are not always answered by morning, but they are often, quietly, shifted. The brain that is allowed to sleep fully shows a coherence between its regions that is measurably different from the sleep-deprived brain. The prefrontal cortex and the amygdala reconnect. The default mode network resumes its natural rhythms. The hippocampus, having completed its nightly clearing, opens itself for the next day's learning. What sleep deprivation quietly separates? Sleep quietly brings back together. REM sleep increases in duration across the night. The first cycle contains very little, perhaps 10 minutes. By the fourth or fifth cycle, REM periods can extend to 45 minutes or longer. This is why the last hours of sleep are disproportionately rich in emotional processing and creative consolidation. Cutting sleep short by even an hour reduces this late REM sleep significantly. Not proportionally, but substantially. The most emotionally restorative sleep belongs to the end of the night. The night allowed to complete itself does its most important work. The experience of waking from deep sleep carries a particular quality of soft confusion. The brain has been in a state of deep synchrony, and the return requires time. Allowing natural waking, when possible, lets the brain ascend through lighter stages before returning to full consciousness. The brain that is allowed to wake slowly is, in some quiet way, a gentler one. Children dream differently from adults. Young children's dreams are often more like still images than narratives, with fewer social interactions and more animal characters. The complex, self-referential dreams that adults experience develop gradually through childhood and adolescence, in step with the growing sense of self. Dreaming, in this light, is a mirror the brain holds up to itself each night, showing whatever it has grown enough to show. The last thought before sleep often carries a particular honesty. In the threshold between waking and rest, the ordinary filters of daytime consciousness have begun to loosen. What remains tends to be what is most true. Sleep does not simply offer rest, it offers a brief glimpse, unguarded and quiet, of the mind beneath all its daily activity. The brain during dreamless deep sleep is, in some sense, at peace. The coordinated delta waves that roll through the cortex during slow-wave sleep represent a form of neural alignment that has no analog in waking life, every region moving with every other. In slow, wide oscillations, it is not the peace of absence, it is the peace of stillness. A night of full sleep does not erase what was difficult. The memories remain. The challenges still present. The losses no smaller. But the brain that wakes from true sleep meets them from a different place, with more flexibility, more capacity to distinguish what can be met from what must simply be carried. Sleep does not solve life. It restores the brain's ability to face it. The sleeping brain produces its own inner world. The visual cortex, active during REM dreaming, generates imagery in the complete absence of external input. The landscapes of dreams are built from memory and emotion, rendered in the same neural regions used to see the waking world. The dreaming brain does not know the difference. It sees its own creations. With the same quiet completeness, it sees the morning. This is one of sleep's most intimate qualities. That the mind, left alone in the dark, will always find something to see. Sleep science is a young field. The discovery of REM sleep occurred in 1953. The glymphatic system was first described in 2013. What remains unknown is still vast. Why the brain generates the specific content of dreams, rather than simply a state of reduced processing, remains genuinely open. How consciousness persists through the transitions between sleep stages continues to be explored. The sleeping brain is one of science's most intimate frontiers. We are learning, slowly, what it does in the dark. And what it is teaching us is that the dark is very full. Every animal that has been studied closely shows something that resembles sleep. Dolphins sleep with one hemisphere at a time. Migratory birds engage brief, slow-wave sleep during the glide phase of flight. Octopuses appear to undergo something analogous to REM, their skin shifting with rapid color changes in patterns that resemble, in ways researchers find genuinely curious. What might be dreaming? Sleep is not a human invention. It is something closer to a fundamental property of complex neural life. Whatever sleep is, evolution keeps finding ways to build it in. The final hours of a long, uninterrupted night's sleep are the body's most settled. Heart rate and blood pressure are at their lowest. The last REM cycles are processing the most recent and most vivid dreams. All the processes that sleep sets in motion are reaching their natural completion together. Waking from this completion feels different from waking at any other time. Something has finished. Something is ready. The brain remembers almost none of the work it does during sleep. The details of most dreams fade within minutes of waking. The process of memory consolidation leaves no accessible trace. The glymphatic clearing passes without record in waking experience. This invisibility is part of what makes sleep easy to undervalue. Its contributions arrive without attribution, as simply a more capable, more settled version of the self. Waiting each morning, the credit goes, silently, nowhere. But the work was done. The sound of rain on a roof, of wind in trees, of ocean waves against a shore. These have been found to mask the irregular sounds that can trigger brief arousals during sleep. They create a continuous sonic environment that smooths over the acoustic landscape of the night. Whether the mechanism is purely masking or something deeper in the brain's response to natural sound. The instinct to rest near the sounds of the natural world appears to have a basis in how the sleeping brain receives sound. The world that surrounds sleep shapes the quality of the sleep it contains. The brain that has been resting less than it needs, and then begins to sleep adequately, shows measurable improvements within days. Prefrontal cortex activity recovers. Emotional steadiness returns. Inflammatory markers begin to ease. Memory consolidation improves. The recovery requires patience and consistency. And in some domains, it unfolds more gradually than in others. But the direction is reliable. The brain that is given sleep begins to restore itself with a fidelity that speaks to how completely the architecture of recovery is built into its biology. The path back begins with the first full night, somewhere tonight. In this same darkness, millions of people are beginning to sleep, their brains moving through the same cycles, the same stages, the same quiet orchestration of clearing and consolidating and dreaming that human brains have moved through for as long as there have been human brains. Sleep is one of the few experiences that connects every person alive, across geography, language, and circumstance, in the same biological act, whatever else divides us. This draws us together. Every sleeping person, tonight, is doing the same essential thing as every other sleeping person, trusting the night with the most important work there is. The brain you will have tomorrow morning is being shaped tonight, not metaphorically, literally. The memories consolidating while you sleep are the ones that will shape what you know. The emotional processing occurring in REM is what will determine how you meet tomorrow's challenges. The quiet clearing of today's accumulated waste is what will allow tomorrow's thoughts to move through clean pathways. Sleep is not preparation for life. It is part of life. The invisible part. The unwitnessed part. Doing some of the most consequential work of all. The quiet of sleep is not emptiness. It is full of the brain's own rhythms, the delta waves and spindles, and the rapid movements of dreaming, full of the body's cycles, breathing, heartbeat, the slow thermal settling, full of the invisible movement of fluid through the spaces between neurons, full of the rehearsal of skills and the softening of memories and the quiet rewriting of who you are in the direction of who you are becoming. The sleeping hours are some of the fullest of any day. You simply are not awake to see them. The depth of a single night's sleep carries more biology than most waking days, more hormone regulation, more memory consolidation, more cellular repair, more emotional processing, all of it occurring in a state that the waking world tends to consider passive. Sleep is not what you do when the day is done. It is part of how the day is possible. There is something the sleeping brain never forgets. Not a memory, not a fact, a rhythm, the rhythm of sleep itself. The 90-minute cycles, the balance between deep and dreaming, the precise timing of the body's thermal and hormonal descent. This rhythm is ancient, embedded, yours. It does not need to be learned or willed into existence. It simply needs to be allowed. The brain that is given the darkness and the stillness and the time will always find its way back to that rhythm. It has never forgotten how. What happens to your brain when you don't sleep? It becomes, slowly and measurably, less itself, less capable of the things that define it, less clear, less steady, less able to meet other people fully, less equipped to face the world with all of its ordinary weight. But the deeper answer, the one that has been forming beneath everything else in this long, quiet journey, is this. The brain without sleep is a brain still reaching for what sleep provides, and the brain that is given sleep, that is held by sleep, that completes its nightly cycle through all its stages and all its invisible work. That brain comes back every morning. It comes back a little cleaner, a little quieter, a little more capable of the extraordinary, ordinary work of being alive. And so our quiet journey through the sleeping brain comes to a gentle close. We began with the glymphatic system, for that finding from 2013, and the way it clears the brain's accumulated proteins through widened intercellular spaces, working only in the dark, only in the deep. We noted how beta amyloid, the protein whose long accumulation is associated with Alzheimer's, is among what the sleeping brain clears each night, and we ended with the rhythm that every brain carries. Ancient and reliable, waiting only to be allowed, from the amygdala's heightened tenderness after a single night of poor sleep, to the dreaming brain that builds entire worlds from memory and emotion. We have glimpsed how sleep is both biological necessity and something that feels. In the quiet of it, like a kind of grace, the brain does not simply rest when it sleeps. It becomes, again, fully itself. Sleep reminds us that the most essential things happen without our witness. The clearing, the consolidating, the softening of what was hard, all of it occurring in silence, in darkness, without effort or intention. The sleeping brain reveals a patience that waking life rarely allows. Without these invisible hours, the days would accumulate more weight, and the self become less able to carry them. By simply resting, you are participating in something that has been perfecting itself for millions of years. In these final minutes, take the deepest breath you can, as deep as possible. Think about unity, the unity of every neuron in your brain, moving now toward the same slow rhythm. Every system that has been tending you all day, quieting itself together. In the same descending wave, you are not separate from this process. You are the process. Let your entire being dissolve into the soft, unhurried darkness, the space before thought, the place where the brain's most important work begins, where the day is gently taken apart and made. Overnight, into tomorrow, prepare for deep sleep. No boundaries left, only peace. If this quiet exploration of the sleeping mind helped you settle tonight, if your body feels a little heavier than when we began, perhaps a gentle like or subscribe could carry this stillness towards someone else who needs it. One quiet tap, one more restful mind, finding its way here. That is enough. But there is nothing to do now. Nothing at all. The glymphatic system is already beginning its work. Without your direction, without your awareness, the night is already, quietly, doing what it came to do. You don't need to hold any of it. It was never yours to carry. You have traveled inward tonight. Through corridors most people never pause to notice. You touched the architecture of what you are, and found it more capable, more resilient, more carefully tended than it perhaps seemed at the end of a long day. You can allow these thoughts of the sleeping brain to fade now, like the last waking image before the threshold. Present, then softer, then simply part of everything, leaving only the quiet, unheld calm behind. Let your breathing deepen. Let your body feel heavier, as if all you have been carrying today is being sorted by careful, invisible hands, and is simply setting itself down. If sleep comes, let it carry you the way memory consolidation does, not with force, but with quiet intention, into a realm where time and weight no longer matter. If your eyes are still open, the next video is waiting for you, ready to continue the journey. But if they're closed, stay there. Stay in the darkness that feels safe and warm. Tomorrow, your brain will still be there, still tending, still weaving, still clearing the way forward, still becoming. But tonight belongs to stillness. Rest well, gentle explorer, and remember, the most important work your mind will ever do, it does while you sleep. Good night.